Welcome to part 2 of Jehovah's Witnesses sending conflicting information and meddling in people's lives, specifically when it comes to pursuing higher education. Last week, the Jehovah's Witnesses all over the world were forced to study literature that basically discourages them from going, stops short of saying we disapprove of higher education. And this is important because the Jehovah's Witnesses organization made a historic announcement this past year about how no one should judge you for attending college. It's up to your conscience. It looks like they're giving witnesses the green light for the first time ever, but within the same breath, putting out all this information immediately following this announcement about the dangers of higher education, everything they're going to be exposed to, doing the same thing they've always done. The leadership of the Jehovah's Witnesses are once again talking out both sides of their mouth, saying we won't judge you, it's up to you, while simultaneously crafting and dispensing conflicting information that says if you do pursue college, make no mistake, we are still going to attempt to exert as much control over your life as possible. So just like last weekend, I'm going to break this article down into 3 main sections, basically in line with Stephen Hassan's BITE model. You can think of it as like behavior control, information control, and thought control. So again, the main theme or title of this article is Stay Spiritually Strong While Getting Additional Education. And the use of the term additional instead of higher is not by accident. I discussed this last week, but I'll get more into it later. We're going to hop down to this first subheading, okay? It says, maintain a healthy spiritual routine. It says the challenge. Additional education might place new demands on you that will affect your daily routine. Because you naturally want to do well in your schooling, you could begin to treat your service to Jehovah as of lesser importance. You could even start to neglect Christian meetings, participation in the ministry, personal Bible study, and prayer. Just like I mentioned in part 1, the first installment of this last weekend, Jehovah's Witnesses are not just going to church. It is an extremely controlling organization that attempts to micromanage every facet of your life. Clearly, education, type of work, who you can be friends with, who you can date. It mimics an abusive relationship. Your whole life has to revolve around them. You know, it's like, I don't want you hanging out with so-and-so, or I don't want you to have any friends. They want to isolate you and have you all to themselves. It mimics an abusive relationship. They need your life. They need everything to revolve around them. So articles like this, they give the illusion that they're becoming more progressive, loosening their grip a little bit, but it's all an illusion. There are very specific expectations that you have to live up to, okay? And if you don't go to the meetings, don't go out preaching, knocking on doors, study, show up to the meetings with your publications highlighted, this little minutia, all these little things, these expectations. If you don't do that, you don't check all these boxes, you're going to get in trouble. Like you're a child. So right out the gate, they're making sure you understand up front. We don't care about your aspirations, your dreams and aspirations. We don't care. Go to college, but make sure you're doing X, Y, Z, or we're going to notice. And you see, they continue this in paragraph 6. As you get your additional education, regularly make a self-examination, perhaps every month or so. Ask yourself, are my priorities still in focus? Be alert to warning signs. For example, a habit of skipping meetings, because they're going to notice, or arriving late, or of thinking about your school assignments while the meeting is in progress, or of attending meetings only virtually. That was a big problem in 2020 when they shut down the Kingdom Halls because of COVID and then, went to Zoom only. And a lot of people woke up that way. See, that's what they're afraid of. They're not just afraid of you being distracted by your schoolwork or learning things they don't want you to learn, but they know that if you're not physically in the Kingdom Hall, that you could start to wake up. Because that happened to a lot of people. They woke up because they had time to breathe and space to breathe away from the Kingdom Hall, away from the grind and the hamster wheel. It says, note too, whether your habit of prayer and Bible reading begins to slack off or whether your ministry becomes superficial, I love the fact that they use this word, a mere chore that you want to finish as quickly as possible. Of course, that's how people feel. If you see such traits developing, act quickly. Do not let your education keep you from giving priority to Jehovah's service. So, do you notice how detailed this paragraph is? They speak with such specificity. Does your mind wander off? Are you trying to leave at halftime? Are you arriving late? You know why they're bringing up these very specific scenarios, right? Because they know that this is how witnesses are. They know what they're doing to their own people. They know this happens even if you're not in college, you're not pursuing a degree. This is just a regular Tuesday for a Jehovah's Witness. This is just to be expected as a witness, that you're going to be bored, your mind is going to wander off. The people who wrote this, I guarantee you, the people who wrote this article are the teenagers that used to nod off and take naps during the meeting, who used to shuffle around aimlessly at the conventions and talk smack with their buddies. The very people who are writing this article warning you not to do these things did it themselves. They know this is Jehovah's Witness culture. Shoot, you add college coursework on top of all your witness responsibilities, and you have a job. Who in their right mind would be fresh and ready to go at every meeting? But again, they're drilling into witnesses' brains that the organization, should be the top priority in your life. Again, it's not about encouraging or supporting your dreams and aspirations. They don't give a shit. And the irony is, if they weren't so controlling and didn't try to micromanage every aspect of your life, witnesses would do these things out of their own volition, not because they feel pressured. They wouldn't need to do this. They wouldn't need to be corralled and berated like toddlers. It's like forcing someone to love you. It's like, I want you to hug me and love me because you genuinely love me, not because, not out of obligation and coercion. Okay, so basically, we covered the behavior control aspect. Now we're getting into thought control and information control. I mean, it's all spread out everywhere. But so in this section, it says, guard your thinking abilities. Okay, the challenge. Depending on the courses you take, your additional education might expose you to the world's philosophy and empty deception, including atheism and evolution. It could also promote a spirit of self-reliance. One young brother recalls, we weren't just taught a skill, we were taught a way of thinking, one that often wasn't in harmony with Jehovah's thinking. For example, we were taught that our success in life depended on ourselves. This kind of thinking left Jehovah out of the equation. It made it more difficult for me to rely on him. Okay, first and foremost, let me just say this. No young person, quote, young person or young brother, talks like this. This is a fictitious testimony. They do this all the time. No one actually of this age speaks in this cult-coded language. This is someone in the writing department telling young people how they should be thinking and spelling it out. But also, this is where you see the organization's manipulation and thought control on full display. This idea that being taught a different way of thinking poses some major threat is really hypocritical, being that it's perfectly okay, right? That Jehovah's Witnesses are indoctrinated from birth through their lectures and publications. I will say this. Personally, I don't believe that you should hand your mind over to anyone, including your professors. And unfortunately, I've seen this happen where there are Jehovah's Witnesses who do go to college, and because what they're learning is the complete opposite of Watchtower, they automatically assume it's true. They automatically assume it's right, and then they fall, unfortunately, for a new thing. They latch onto a new dogma or set of beliefs that they're learning from their professor or this college club on campus. They're primed because they're angry. They feel disenfranchised, or, they didn't have the opportunity to think for themselves from the time they were very young. I totally get it. And then some will do that just to be contrarian. They'll just latch onto a new thing just to be contrarian and just to rebel against Watchtower, and that doesn't automatically make something true. Critical thinking is still a skill. Because it's not Watchtower, it must be right. That's just as fallacious. I don't care who you are, where you come from. You should still be on guard. But the thing is, Watchtower's making it look like any dangers that are posed on a college campus or that you're exposed to automatically means that they're correct, which again is fallacious reasoning. It doesn't make any sense. Over here, it continues in paragraph 8. The Bible warns you to guard your thinking abilities. To guard something implies that it is under threat of attack. That is certainly true with regard to your thinking abilities. The world's spirit can undermine your faith with regard to morals, because the world has absolutely no morals. We all know that, right? Only Jehovah's people are spiritual and moral and have an ethical compass, the origin of life, or even the existence of God. People may present their view as, and this is interesting, people may present their view as, quote, higher thinking, but it is actually lower thinking. In fact, it is foolishness with God. I talked about this in the last video. Just say it. Don't go to college, because that's how they actually feel about it. That's why they don't say higher education in their title. They call it additional education. So they'll say things like, we shouldn't judge. They're hypocrites, man. We shouldn't judge anyone. No one should judge a Christian. And yet, right there it says, basically, if you go to college and you view it as, quote, higher education, you're a fool. It's a blatant contradiction and admission of what they actually think of you if you were to pursue this path. So they absolutely do judge you if you're going to college. All right, so this paragraph right here is interesting and annoying, but speaks to the whole priorities argument that we were talking about earlier. Okay, paragraph 11, the challenge. Additional education may place heavy demands on your time, especially when you're studying for exams or when you have a tight deadline to complete a project. If you do not manage your time wisely, you could suffer from undue stress and even set yourself up for burnout. That is why it's vital for you to take care of your physical and emotional health. I have never met a well-rested Jehovah's Witness, and to suggest that college is the thing that's going to send them over the edge is comical. You go to public school all day, you got homework. If you're an adult, you clock in, go to work all day. You're tired off your ass by the time you get home. Doesn't matter, got to go to the meeting. Get your homework done, change out of your suit and tie from work, and then get into another suit and tie for the meeting. Family life, other issues you got going on, doesn't matter. Better get it done because you got to read the magazines. You got to highlight all the answers, prepare for the meetings. If you have a talk or demonstration, got to prepare for that and get up early on Saturday morning after a long week of school and work. Don't forget to study your Watchtower, just like we're doing with this one, every Sunday. And wake up Monday morning, do it all over again. The organization doesn't give a damn. It's totally okay for the organization to pressure you. It's noble. It's righteous if you destroy yourself for us, for Jehovah, but for us, for the organization. We're concerned for your mental and emotional health, and that you might get burnt out if you go to college. Give me a break. This is one of the most ridiculous, insulting demonstrations of gaslighting in this article. And now to conclude, finally, keep walking with the wise. We're going to tell you basically who you can be friends with. As you get additional education, your fellow students might try to include you in their social life. You might be tempted to join them. After all, you have a lot in common with them, especially if much of your time is spent with them in class. You might even feel that you have more in common. Thought this was very telling. You might even feel that you have more in common with your classmates than you do with some of your fellow believers. However, you need to be cautious. Although you share a classroom with your fellow students, you do not share their values. And the more time you spend with them, the more their thinking can affect you. I've talked about this before. You don't have real friends in the organization. You have informants, people who are trained and prepared to snitch on you if you deviate or go off script in some way that, raises alarm bells. I'm not saying they're bad people, but no, you do not make authentic connections or friendships in the organization. How can you? You were all born into this, most of them. You're born into this. How can it be real if you're all forced to be together? You're just all stuck together and you have no choice. That's not real friendship. I knew good people in the organization, people that I would cut up with and laugh. We hung out here and there, got along with people. I could get along with a tree stump. I knew that I had no other choice. And quite frankly, let's be real, they didn't have any other choice. I'm all they had. Maybe they didn't really want to hang out with me. It's a simple fact that you don't like everyone, right? So why would you expect everyone to like you? So I'm sure there was people who didn't really want to hang out with me, but they were stuck with me. The environment is not conducive to forming real friendships. And the organization is fully aware of this. They say so themselves. They say it right here. It says, you might feel you have more in common with these other people. However, you need to be cautious. Although you share a classroom with them, you don't share their values. No, it's my parents' values. I didn't elect to be here. And now that I'm approaching adulthood and getting ready to spread my wings, move out of this small pond or whatever you want to call it, you're doing everything in your power to hold me back. Even when you know I'm not happy here. Again, a blatant admission of how culty you are. Let's just call a spade a spade, Stay even though you know something's off. So, this whole idea to wrap up, sort of in summary, that they're somehow cool with or supportive of higher education is very, very misleading. Jehovah's Witnesses are never given the benefit of the doubt. Their conscience is constantly being micromanaged through manipulative articles like this one. They're forever infantilized, forever treated like children. And my thing is, if you have the quote truth, because they refer to themselves as the one and only truth, they believe everyone else is wrong, or let's say that you have the best way of life, they say we have the best life ever. You don't need to do this. If someone truly believes in the Jehovah's Witnesses' teachings and ideology, okay, bear with me, if they are truly happy, if you are truly happy as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, there's no need for you to overcompensate with articles like these to make sure your parishioners don't deviate. On the contrary, the more you attempt to control people's lives, the more obvious it becomes that something is amiss, something's not right, and you're afraid that they're going to figure it out, frankly, if they have the space to breathe and think for themselves, whether that's on a college campus, only attending meetings through Zoom, or stepping away from the organization altogether, from all the activities and expectations that are placed on their shoulders. There you go. This is how Jehovah's Witnesses actually feel about higher education, additional education. If you're Watchtower literate, you know how they operate. You can just see right through it. It's also very on brand for Watchtower. This tracks. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like more information about the insider culture of Jehovah's Witnesses from a former member of 30 years, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.